Hello everyone, welcome to this comprehensive tutorial on HTML, RGB and RGBA colors. And in this video, we are going to dive deep into understanding how RGB and RGBA color values work, and by the end, you will be able to use them confidently in your web development projects. Let's get started. Before we jump into the technical details, let's understand what RGB actually means and why it's so important in web design. So RGB stands for red, green, and blue. These are the three primary colors of light. Now this is very important to understand that RGB is based on light sources, not pigments or paint. So this is how computers, monitors, television, screens, and all digital displays create colors. So now let's look at how we specify RGB colors in HTML. An RGB color value represents red, green, and blue light sources. Notice I emphasized light sources because this is crucial to understanding how RGB works. The syntax for RGB is very specific. You write the letters RGB, then you write red, green, and blue. Okay, so the three numbers separated by commas and finally a closing parentheses. The formula looks like this: RGB, red, green, and blue. Each parameter that's red, green, and blue defines the intensity of that particular color. So, and here's the key point: each value can range from 0 to 255. Okay, as we have written here, 255. Let me separate the lines. 255. Okay, so 0 means no intensity of that color at all, and 255 means maximum intensity of that color. So now here's something fascinating about RGB colors. Since each of the three parameters, red, green, and blue, can have values from 0 to 255, that gives us 256 possible values for each parameter. Why 256? Because we are counting from 0, so it's 0 through 255, which is 256 total values. Now if we multiply 256 by 256 by 256, we get 16 million. For example, if we multiply as we have told you earlier, that if we multiply 256, okay, cross 256, then we also cross 256, we get 16,777,216. This means there are over 16 million possible color combinations using RGB values. That's an incredible range of colors you can create. So let's look at some practical example to make this crystal clear. We are going to use the H1 first heading. For example, if you write here by using the style attribute and then you write here the background color, and here you write RGB. As you can see, by default it's red, green, and blue. Okay, if you write in the red 255, then in place of green you write here, for example, 0, and in place of blue you write here. So what color do you think this creates? As you can see in the preview tab, the red value is set to its highest value of the 255, the green value is set to 0, and the blue value is also set to 0. Now you understand this. Okay, 255, I mean the red color has been set to highest value. So this creates pure red because red is at maximum intensity, and the other two colors, as you can see, the green and blue, their intensity has been set to 0. So simply, for example, if you use in place of 255 you use 0, then in place of green you use 255, then you use here 0, would create pure green because green is at maximum and red and blue are off. And if you use, for example, here 0, and as you can see this was blue, and you use here 255, so this will create pure blue color. Now what happens when you mix these colors? Let's say you want yellow. Yellow is created by mixing red and green light. Okay, so if you write here 255, we are going to create a yellow color, and here you will write here for example 0. So uh, 255, 255 and 0 gives you yellow, maximum red, maximum green and no blue. Okay, if you want white you need all the three colors and maximum intensity. I mean, you need red 255, blue 255, I mean green 255 and blue 255. So this makes perfect sense when you think about light. When you combine the red, green and blue light at full intensity, you get full light, I mean white light. On the opposite end, RGB, if you use here 0 0, okay, let's use the 0 0 and here 0. So it will gives you black because all the three light sources are turned completely off. No light equals black. What about gray? Gray is created when all three values are equal, but not at the extreme. For example, if you use here 1 to 8, I said all the three values equal, and here you use 1 to 8. So in this sense, it will gives you a medium gray. The number 128 is right in the middle of 0 and 255. So we have learned about how to use the RGB values. Okay. Now let's move on to the RGBA. RGBA is an extension of RGB with one powerful addition. The A stands for alpha. Okay. Right here. RGBA. A stands for, you can see in the preview tab. Okay, A stands for alpha, and it controls opacity, or you can say the transparency. So RGBA color value is an extension of RGB with an alpha channel that allows you to specify the opacity of the color. This is incredibly useful for creating modern web designs with the layered elements, subtle backgrounds, and sophisticated visual effects. The syntax for RGBA is almost identical to RGB with just one additional parameter. You write RGBA red, green, blue, alpha. Okay, for example, RGBA, and then you write here red, then green, then blue, okay, and then you use alpha. So with just one additional parameter, alpha, the first three parameters, I mean, it means the red, green, and blue work exactly the same as in the RGB. Okay, so they each range from 0 to 255, defining the intensity of each color component. The fourth parameter, the alpha channel, is different. The alpha parameter is a number between 0 and 1. Okay, alpha is actually a number, means it means I have to write here alpha is actually a number between 0 to 1. The color is completely transparent. If the value is set to 0, you can't see it at all. If the alpha value is 1.0, the color is completely opaque. It's fully solid with no transparency whatsoever. And any value in between creates partial transparency. For example, 0.5 means 50% transparency, or you could say 50% opaque. Okay, 0.2 means 20% opaque, meaning you can see through it quite a bit. 0.8 means 80% opaque, meaning it's mostly solid with just a little transparency. So let me give you some real world scenarios where RGBA is incredibly useful. Okay, so imagine you want to create an overlay effect on an image. For example, uh, let's use the style attribute in the H1, I mean the primary heading. Then you use this, for example, style attribute, and you use here the background color. Then what we are going to use RGBA. Okay, so for example, if you write here 0, and in place of green you also write here 0, then in place of blue you also write here 0, and in place of alpha, as we have, it's range from 0 to 1, we are going to write here 0.5. Then you could see this creates a semi-transparent black overlay. The black color is created with RGB 000. and the 0.5 makes it 50% transparent, allowing the image underneath to still be, allowing the heading underneath to still be partially visible. Perhaps you want to create a subtle background for a text box that, for example, we are going to use another heading and style attribute, then background color, and we are going to use here RGBA. So if we use here 255, then we use again 255, and we are going to use here the 255. Then in place of blue we are also going to use 255, and in place of alpha we use for example 0.8. So if you enter this, so in this for a mostly opaque white background that still lets a little bit of the background show through. For example, if you write here 0, okay, I'm gonna put here 0, and again here 0, and if I write here 02, then I write 3. So in this sense, for a light transparent black shadow that doesn't overpower the design. So for a subtle yellow highlight, you will have to use place of 0, 55, then you use again 255, then you use 0, and here you have to use 0.2. So for a subtle yellow highlight that doesn't completely obscure the text underneath. So let's clearly distinguish between RGB and RGBA so you know when to use each one. Use RGB when you want solid, completely opaque colors. If you are setting a background color that should be completely solid, or a text color that needs to be fully visible, RGB is perfect. So use RGBA when you need any kind of transparency or opacity control. This includes overlays, shadows, subtle backgrounds, layered effects, or any situation where you want elements to blend together visually. So RGB and RGBA with an alpha of 1.0 are functionally identical. Okay, so RGB color system gives web developers incredible precision and control over colors. So this precision is especially important when you're working with the brand colors. Okay, so in this video we have learned about RGB and RGBA colors in depth. Thank you so much for watching this tutorial. I hope you now have a complete and thorough understanding of RGB and RGBA colors in HTML. If you find this helpful, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more web development tutorials. Happy coding, and I'll see you in the next video.